everybody. Thanks for coming back. We are talking about self-care again. I filmed this video a long time ago and it is one of the earliest videos we have on the channel. Please don't go look it up. By the time that this is going live, that other video will be removed from the internet forever, hopefully, because they're really just yikes. So yeah, we're talking about self-care again because there are a lot of misconceptions about self-care and the idea of what self-care is supposed to be used for. And so I want to talk about it and then kind of give you guys some inspiration for how to craft a self-care routine for yourself. So let's talk about it. Okay, so the idea of self-care, unfortunately, in recent years has kind of gotten like a weird reputation for being related or like inherently inclusive of cosmetic products and services. I want to like tread lightly here. There's nothing wrong with using cosmetic products and services as part of your self-care routine if that works for you, but that doesn't mean that self-care is only about getting massages, getting a facial, taking a bath, getting a manicure. There is a whole world of self-care out there that doesn't have any fucking thing to do with putting makeup on or buying expensive face creams and moisturizers and just like other bullshit. Clearly my self-care routine is not very inclusive of cosmetic stuff. It just doesn't really vibe with me. But again, if it vibes with you, there's nothing wrong with that. I would encourage you to lean into that. But I want to talk about self-care because again, there's like a whole other world out there for things that you can do that are still things that can fill your cup that don't necessarily have to be expensive or beauty related. The other thing that I want to talk about too is the idea of self-care being expensive. A lot of times people picture self-care as like treating yourself or like indulging, right? Ideally, self-care doesn't really look this way though. I have seen quite a few self-care videos on YouTube from popular influencers and like bigger channels where they talk about, yeah, I scheduled 5 appointments for myself this week to go get a massage and to have my house redone and like all of this just crazy shit that like, first of all, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have time for that. And second of all, like I don't really have money for that. Self-care ideally looks like the small things that we do throughout the week or throughout the month that add little drops into a bucket over time. So if your self-care for the day is just about looking through TikTok or looking at other social media, there's nothing wrong with that. Self-care doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. A lot of really good self-care honestly is free. A lot of my self-care is free because I also just like derive joy and pleasure out of the idea that I can do something that fills my bucket or fills my cup without having to spend any money. That's like sort of a twofer for a lot of people, especially right now. The other thing too about self-care that it felt important to remake this video right now because a lot of people's self-care is related to going to the gym, spending time with other people, getting dinner out, going dancing, getting drinks, doing brunch, like all of that stuff, right? Unfortunately, in the cesspool of a state that I live in, you're still allowed to do some of those things, but in a lot of places who actually are taking the global pandemic that's killing people seriously, you're not able to like eat out in public or go to the gym. So with that, then the idea of diversifying our assets in terms of self-care is really important. When your self-care is particularly focused on one area, like beauty products, like going to the gym, like spending time with other people, it can kind of set you up for failure. Not that we're going to experience a global pandemic like all the time, but you know, sometimes we're busy. Maybe you don't have the money for your gym membership anymore. What happened with me was that my skin had a really intense reaction to makeup and beauty products, and so that was something that was off the table for me and I wasn't able to do it anymore. Shit like this happens, you know? So I want to encourage you guys to, when you're crafting a self-care routine or when you're evaluating what your self-care looks like, to make sure that you have a little bit of self-care from a lot of different areas, because then when shit like this happens, you're not just like completely out of luck and you have nowhere else to turn. And that's what I mean too, that self-care can be little stuff. The way that I explain self-care to my clients is that we all have a cup, right? Or a bucket that when we go to work, show up for other people, listen to our friends and family vent about their day, when we take care of our kids, when we care for our pets and our dogs and cats and whatever, all of that takes, you know, like little drops out of our bucket. Self-care is the way that we put drops back into that bucket. Self-care sometimes looks like buying yourself a candy bar from the gas station on your way home. Self-care can look like going to the gym or moving your body in some capacity. Self-care can look like getting a massage or buying makeup. Self-care can also look like sitting in your room and crying for 10 minutes. There's nothing wrong with incorporating self-care. Actually, I would encourage you to incorporate self-care from a lot of different areas. The other piece of self-care that I want to talk about that's really important is the idea of consistency. When we focus on self-care as like a beauty routine or like especially expensive things, the tendency is to do self-care once a month, once a quarter, whenever you can afford it. And ideally self-care, like I keep saying the word self-care routine, and what I mean by that is incorporating little pieces of self-care into every day. I have a video where I talked about my self-care routine for a whole week, so I'll link that. I think it's up here. I don't know. It's up here. It's up here. It's somewhere. So I'll put that video in the card so you guys can watch that. But there are a lot of little things that you can do to help fill your cup on a daily, weekly basis. I would really encourage you guys to sit down and actually think about self-care for Monday, self-care for Tuesday, self-care for Wednesday, etc., because it helps hold you accountable for actually doing those things when you say that you're going to do them, so that on Saturday morning you're not like, oh. So it's really important that self-care be both consistent and something that happens regularly in terms of like once a day or once every couple of days at least. And that's what I mean when I say that sometimes self-care is just about sleeping in for an extra 10 minutes or about going to bed 30 minutes earlier. Scheduling time for you to look at social media, scheduling time for you to call your mom or to have a Zoom call with a friend. There are a lot of different ways that we can incorporate self-care into our lives, even now, even while a lot of us are still in quarantine or social distancing or things like that. So the last kind of piece that I wanted to talk about with self-care is the idea of creativity. Your self-care does not have to look like other people's self-care. If there's something weird or kind of off color that brings you joy, lean into it. That's literally the only requirement that I have for self-care for my clients, is that it brings you joy. So if that means watching an old movie, even if it's problematic, or there's nothing wrong with, like, as an adult, playing with Play-Doh or making slime or doing those like dollar crafts that you can buy at Michael's. There are a lot of resources and things, especially for kids, that are like fun. And so if you're an adult and those bring you joy, then like lean into that. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful. Like I said, the other video that we did on self-care was like real bad. So hopefully this is a little bit better than that and gives you guys kind of a jumping off point in terms of creating self-care and like, incorporating it into your daily lives. So if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We do stuff like this, but also fun stuff and like funnier shit. So stick around because hopefully some funnier shit is coming. And then share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I'll see you guys probably next Friday. Okay, bye.